Welcome to Wife Cheating Story. I hope you have an enjoyable and relaxing time listening. Let's get started.
3 people, all in love. It's quite complicated. The next morning when I woke up, Caden was already gone. He left me a note saying he had work to do but would be back in time for lunch. He thanked me for a lovely evening. I yawned and stretched, feeling a bit like a movie star after a special night. Last night had been amazing, even if it was tough. Caden hadn't said much, but I could see how he felt about me. Again, I realized that I was dealing with a headstrong man who was also quite traditional. He cared for me, sure, but he also had his own ways. I knew it would take more than one good night to get what I wanted. I thought about what I had heard about Scottish folks. They were known to be careful with money, but that wasn't true for everyone. They were often generous and very sentimental. Most of them were seen as friendly, self-deprecating, and above all, loyal. But there was also a long history of restraint, a mindset that held them back. I could see how this affected Caden in everything he did. He had many blessings, but it seemed like he always felt something might go wrong. There's an old saying, "The Lord gives and the Lord takes away." I thought of another one. You can, but you can't. You will, but you won't. I didn't know where I learned this, but I felt it was true. Somewhere, Caden was driving around happy about what we shared the night before. But I bet he was also expecting something bad to happen. I needed to confront my doubts. I felt unworthy. I believed I could never be good enough for him, but I was determined to show him I cared. I wanted him to be mine, but I knew I had to encourage him. I hoped that soon, a chance would come my way. I just had to wait. Angie had her struggles too. Matt really tried to win me over last night. He poured on the charm. He told me how much he cared and that he thought I was attractive. I knew that was a bit much. Caden was the only one who I truly believed saw me that way. Matt talked about Emily and how nice she is. He reminded me of all the fun we had together. He came close to implying that all our outings had been his way of showing how he felt about me. He almost crossed the line when he hinted that I should return the favor. I could have gone either way. He was close to winning my heart, but also near losing it. I wasn't ready to give in to him yet. I was tempted, but the moment wasn't right. Matt would need to do and say much more to earn my affection. Bernard had some moments, but those were more about his feelings towards Caden. The only person who truly mattered to me was Caden, the one from my memories. Caden visits a man. I got out of my car and walked up the ramp to Matt Devereaux's office. I didn't want to disturb him inside. I thought maybe talking outside would be better. There were people walking around since it was Saturday. I knocked on the door. Matt opened the door to his office. I was waiting for him. He stepped outside and said, "Yes, Mr. McLeish?" I asked, "Do you have a moment?" He replied, "For what?" I said, "I wanted to check on how Angie is doing." Matt didn't invite me in. He just stood at the door and said, "She's doing fine, Mr. McLeish. Her work is good. She fits in well." I knew I needed to clarify what I meant. "That's not what I wanted to talk about, Matt." He asked, "What else could it be?" I began, "You know she's my ex-wife. I was wondering." Matt cut me off, "Mr. McLeish. Her past doesn't matter to me. She's my employee, and I'm satisfied with her work." I stepped a bit closer. "You've been dating her. Is that allowed in the library?" He answered, still standing his ground. "Yes, I've taken her out a few times, but frankly, Mr. McLeish, that's not your concern." I leaned forward. I didn't mean to touch him. It was just a mistake, but as we spoke, I unintentionally brushed against him. When I did that, he reacted quickly and had me on the ground before I knew it. It surprised me. I hadn't dealt with anyone skilled like that. He warned me. He pointed, "Mr. McLeish, you shouldn't provoke people you don't know. I'm sorry, I should have warned you. I know some martial arts." I was shocked. He had me down before I could respond. He reached down and offered me his hand. I took it. "I'm sorry, Matt. I wasn't trying anything. I just worry about my ex-wife." He replied firmly, "Angie's an adult. She's here because of a grant. I keep track of her activities, but our off-duty time together isn't against any rules. As for your concerns, I will overlook this time, but don't let it happen again." Concern. I felt embarrassed. What I did was hardly a confrontation, yet many people saw what happened. Couldn't I stand my ground? I tried to collect my thoughts. "Look, Mr. Devereaux, I have a right to ask about my ex-wife." He replied, "Maybe you do, but I don't have to tell you anything. She's an adult. I can only guess that when I inform her about your interference this morning, she might take action. If she does, I'll support her. Mr. McLeish, you have wealth and influence in this town, but be careful. Don't overstep." There were about 20 people around when he said that. I felt terrible. "Sorry, Mr. Devereaux. I'm just concerned about my ex-wife sometimes. I'll be going now." I left as quickly as I could. Later that afternoon, after I got home, Caprice came to me, taking my left wrist and sitting me down. I had a feeling she had already heard the news. "Caden, you made a mistake today." What could I say? I mumbled. Bad news travels fast. Angie called. She's really upset. She's worried about you being hurt, but she's especially upset with you because she doesn't know how she feels about Mr. Devereaux. Caden, she's talked to me. I think she's serious about the librarian. I didn't know how to respond, so I said something silly. "I have to go check the horses." I grabbed my hat and left. The fireman's dance had been on Friday night. Caden faced challenges on Saturday. On Sunday, he and Caprice were back at church. As soon as we walked in, I felt something was off. Barry Campbell, Orrin Camel, Bert McCabe, even Bernard Keith. Many men in town were there. We sat in our usual spot, and soon we were surrounded by some of the toughest guys around. Caprice looked lovely in her plum-colored dress. With her hair in pigtails and new glasses, she looked radiant. She acted like everything was fine, but I knew I was in for it after church. Pastor Cook seemed especially happy. He hadn't seen so many young men in church in a long time. I was sure he knew why they were all there, given where they were sitting. We went through the usual service, hymns and readings. Caprice's voice was beautiful, sending shivers down my spine. I loved being with her. After church, I stood up to help Caprice out of her seat, and that's when things got busy. One by one, each man approached her, trying to hold her hand. She seemed to enjoy it, or at least acted like she did. I felt like a silent observer. Once outside, I was talking with Mrs. Stump and Alice Presley when Campbell approached. He walked over as if he had known her forever. He took Caprice's hand. "The Sharptown Carnival's this week. They have the best fried oyster sandwiches on the shore. I was thinking maybe I could take you and buy you one. I thought, what a surprise. I was planning to take her to Sharptown too. I just hadn't said anything." Before I could say anything, Caprice smiled at Campbell and replied, "Sure. What night did you have in mind?" "Night? Wait a minute." I thought Campbell suggested, "How about tomorrow night?" I was stunned. It felt like I was being left behind by the sneakiest fox. I started to say something. Caprice turned to me, smiling. "You don't mind, do you, Caden?" Was she serious? Of course I minded. Didn't our plans mean anything? Just a couple of nights ago, I thought everything was perfect, and now? I replied, "No, I guess not." Campbell smiled and shook her hand. 7 o'clock? She smiled back. "See you then." Then she placed her hand on my arm and looked up at me, saying just loud enough for others to hear, "Thanks, Dad." What? I was her father figure? I didn't respond. I helped her to the car and we drove home in silence. I went inside just long enough to change out of my Sunday clothes. I needed to get away from there. Caprice thought about Barry Campbell's timing. That man, Barry Campbell, he came along at just the right moment. Caden is so shy. If I waited for him, I could be single forever. I'm ready for a new beginning. This could be just the push Caden needs. Sure, I'll let Campbell take me out. Who would refuse a free oyster sandwich? But Campbell is not my focus. My heart is set. If Angie prefers Matt Devereaux, then Caden will eventually be mine. It's Monday night. Caden grits his teeth. Well, Campbell showed up. Caprice couldn't wait to jump in his car. I never knew Campbell had a nice car. He was well-dressed, but so was she. I wished I hadn't given her a credit card. She had taken my car, gone to the mall, and bought a new outfit. She looked great. The dark slacks and white blouse suited her. I noticed she wore higher shoes than usual. I guess she thought she could match Campbell's height. I should have said something earlier when we were at church. Caprice had been out a lot lately. The invitations kept coming, Barry, Orrin, even some couples who just wanted company. It was flattering, but it left her feeling distracted. Something was missing. Caden had withdrawn. He buried himself in work, barely speaking. It hurt more than she'd expected. Her evenings were filled with polite conversations, but her thoughts always drifted back to him. Angie noticed. "He's been quiet," she said as the two sat on the porch. "You think he's still upset?" "He's not upset," Caprice replied. "He's distant. I think he's trying to make space, maybe too much." Angie smiled faintly. "Barry's been saying things, you know." Caprice looked over. "What kind of things?" "The kind of things men say when they want others to think they're more important than they are." Caprice sighed. "I figured. That ends now." Angie hesitated. "Caprice, do you still want Caden?" Caprice took a moment before replying. "I think I never stopped." Angie nodded, deep in thought. "So did I." An uneasy silence filled the room. There were no harsh words or competition between them. Just two people tangled in feelings they hadn't fully understood. "Whatever happens," Caprice said softly, "you'll always come first to me. I truly mean that." Angie didn't respond. Instead, she reached for Caprice's hand and gave it a gentle squeeze. "I need to ask Caprice in the morning before anyone else gets to her." Caden quietly slipped out of bed and went to the kitchen to grab a glass of orange juice. As he walked by Caprice and Angie's room, he overheard parts of their conversation. "Caprice, why won't you let me be close to you?" "Oh, Angie, since my surgeries, there's only been one person who's really been close to me. It's not that I don't care for you, because I do, but I think I want to keep some things to myself now. Please don't see me as selfish. You let Barry Campbell." Caden couldn't listen any longer. He hurried back to his bedroom before he could hear more. Climbing back into bed, he buried his head in his pillow. His thoughts were scattered. Had Caprice let Campbell in? No, she couldn't have. She said only one person had been close to her since. But what if she meant someone else? No, that couldn't be right. They were always together. Maybe she didn't see that night we shared as important. Meanwhile, Caprice chose to stay quiet. It was easier for Angie to think it was Campbell than to admit it was Caden. To her, Angie was more important to Caden, and she didn't want to disrupt that. "Just roll back over," Caprice said. Angie did as told. Caprice settled beside her, wanting to share comfort and closeness. The next morning, a worried Caden heard the phone ring. He listened as a sleepy Caprice spoke. Whoever was on the line must have asked her something because he heard a faint yes. Oh no. He jumped out of bed. Campbell must have called and asked her out. He quickly put on his clothes and raced into the kitchen. "Caprice, have you agreed to go with someone to the oyster supper?" She turned to face him and smiled. He looked good, his strong build showing he had worked hard for it. "Caden?" He stepped closer but didn't hug her. "I just wanted to know if anyone talked to you about the oyster supper." What was she thinking? Of course, she should go with Caden. What had she just done? I just got off the phone with Barry." Caden's face said it all. She realized her mistake and moved closer, wrapping her arms around him. "I'm sorry." He took a step back. "That's fine. I wasn't planning on going anyway." No, she couldn't let that happen. "No, Caden, you have to be there." She had to come up with something. "They'll be installing new officers. You need to be there for that. Besides..." He cut her off. "Yeah, you're right. I'm an outgoing officer. Someone will need to help welcome the new people," he added. "Maybe I'll see you there." She switched topics. "Can I cook you some eggs?" Angie entered the kitchen just then and saw Caden, her cheeks flushed. She wasn't supposed to like him, but here he was, looking great. "Eggs? I'll have some. Fried, if that's okay." She leaned over and whispered to Caprice, "Good morning." Caden already started to head back to his room, feeling the weight of the day. "No eggs for me. I need to get to the barn." Angie noticed him leaving and asked Caprice, "Is something wrong?" Caprice nodded. "I can't believe it. You wanted fried eggs, right?" Angie sat down. "And toast and coffee? Oh, and some orange juice. Can you get me home? Emily will wake up soon." Caprice went to the fridge for the juice, managing a small smile. "Right after breakfast." A few days later, Angie thought deeply about her feelings, realizing she had been pulling away from Matt recently. Although he had always been kind at work, Their last few dates showed a side of him she didn't like. She knew he had heard rumors about her past, her breakup with Caden, and her relationship with Bernard, which was still a topic of local gossip. After some thought, she decided to go on another date. Matt suggested a dinner theater, which she thought sounded fun. He picked her up at 6:30, dressed neatly in a tan jacket and dark pants. He knocked on the door, and her mom let him in. He happily chatted with Emily while Angie finished getting ready. Inside, she felt unsure. Part of her thought this date might be their last goodbye. She had her reasons. For one, she had seen that Matt's interest in her was mostly about attraction, not lasting commitment, and she chose not to pursue anything unless it was with Caprice or, maybe one day, Caden. That was the second reason. She was in love. She cared deeply for Caprice and didn't think she was a lesbian, but her feelings were strong. Then there was Caden. Despite the hurt he caused her, she realized she still cared for him and couldn't imagine her life without him. Lastly, there was Pastor Cook's guidance. The pastor had helped her see that her future was closely tied to Emily's future. He helped me realize that if I didn't take care of myself, I might struggle to support Emily when she needed me. He mentioned that raising girls could be tough, especially as they grew older. I understood I needed to be careful with my actions so Emily wouldn't use my choices as an excuse for her own behavior. I remember that night. It was just a few days ago. The evening of our special date arrived, and I felt happy. Matt helped me with my light wrap and gave me a lovely wrist flower. No one had ever given me flowers before, not even Caden. He took me to his car, opened the door for me, and we headed off to the dinner theater. I had a fantastic time. The actors served us dinner while performing a funny play about two men who accidentally married the same woman. It was a bit different, but very entertaining. Matt mentioned that many shows at the dinner theater were like that. It was a BYOB event. Matt had brought 2 bottles of wine. One was a sweet white, and the other was a bold red. I liked the sweet white better, so I enjoyed that. We chose between lasagna and flounder. Since Matt had the red wine, he picked the lasagna, and I went with the fish. The meal was delicious, although I noticed a strange taste in the wine, but I thought maybe it was just me. After our wonderful dinner and show, Matt left a nice tip. Then he invited me to his place for some homemade cake. I happily agreed. When we arrived at Matt's, I felt relaxed and content. I had a great time, and the wine gave me a cozy feeling towards him. I think I had forgotten how great Matt was. As we entered, he took my wrap and asked me to take off my heels. He brought me a slice of chocolate cake and another glass of wine. The cake was amazing. Matt was charming, and his apartment was warm and inviting. I felt a connection with him. He talked about his past, including hard times after his girlfriend left him. I understood how he felt and wanted to help him feel better. We watched some television, and I felt so comfortable that I curled up on his sofa, resting my head on his lap. Matt was kind, giving me gentle massages and caring gestures. I appreciated how he made me feel, and I hoped to bring him happiness too. In the soft glow of the moment, we shared hugs on the sofa. He was attentive, and I was grateful for the bond we were forming. But then he said something that made me think twice about the situation. I knew I needed to rethink what was happening. Suddenly, I felt it was important to set my boundaries, so I made it clear that we should pause. There was a shift in the atmosphere, and I realized I needed to speak up. I jokingly said it felt like he might have tried to add something to my cake. He got upset then and said some harsh things, telling me I was no good and that I should leave if I wouldn't cooperate. That's when I grabbed my purse and hurried out the front door. He started to follow but stopped at the door, laughed, and wished me luck getting home. I ran down the street, stopped to catch my breath, pulled out my phone, and called Caprice. By then, I was in tears. It was a Thursday night. Angie was on what she said might be her final date with the librarian. Caden and I were in the living room reading. I was curled up with A Tale of Two Cities, while Caden lay on the floor with a Tom Clancy novel. Truthfully, I was only half invested in my book. I had read it before. My mind was torn between the story I was reading and other thoughts I wanted to explore that night. I knew it was silly, but I couldn't help but be in love with the man lying in front of me. He had just showered and wore khaki shorts with a nice scent of aftershave. I had taken a shower myself and was in comfy pajamas, wearing a light perfume Caden had given me. I had even put on a little makeup. I daydreamed about us being married, and soon he would ask me to join him. I remembered how well he cared for me during my recovery. A warm feeling spread through me. I had only experienced that warmth once since my surgeries, and it was with him. I felt so happy just thinking about it. I let my leg stretch a little to lightly touch his thigh. He looked up from his book, still feeling disappointed about not asking me to the supper instead of Barry. He smiled. I casually asked, "What are you thinking about?" He said, "I need someone to help me exercise the horses." Out of nowhere, I said, "Why not ask me? I can ride." He grinned widely. "Maybe I will." I felt a rush of excitement. My offer seemed to lift his spirits. I wanted to jump beside him and playfully invite him to take me for a ride around the living room. My heart urged him to ask me to the supper instead of Barry, but he just went back to pretending to read. I knew he was pretending. He wasn't turning any pages. Not wanting to wait, I started to gently rub his thigh with my toes. I couldn't hold back anymore. I closed my book and moved down beside him on the carpet. I knew that if I married him, one of the first things I would do is replace the thin carpet with something soft and comfy. I sat down next to him and asked, "Don't you think we should go to bed?" He looked around and smiled at me, saying, "There's nothing stopping you." I wrapped my arm around his shoulders and got close. I tried to hold his waist. It gets so lonely in that big bed at night. He leaned in and smiled. "Do you need someone to tuck you in?" I nodded. Just then, my phone rang. I figured it was probably Angie out with Devereaux. I raised one finger, reached for my phone, and flipped it over. It was Barry. "Yes, what do you want?" I said, not trying to be friendly. He was interrupting a special moment. I could see Caden's mood shift. Barry said, "The Rehoboth Cancer Society is hosting a dance this Saturday night. I didn't want to hear this. "But that's the night before the oyster supper." He replied, "I know, but it's for a good cause." I felt stuck. I covered the phone with my hand. "Barry wants to take me to a dance this Saturday night." I watched Caden's face change completely, like he aged 10 years in an instant. This was hard for me. Why didn't he just tell me to say no? I said, "You can tell me to say no." Caden said, "No, I think you should go." I replied, "All you have to say is—" But Caden was already getting up and walking toward his bedroom door. He interrupted, "No, you should go to the dance. It's a good cause." I could say you already asked me. He sighed. That wouldn't be honest, as he reached his bedroom door. That annoyed me. Fine, I thought. I'll let Caden decide. I took my hand off the phone. "Sure. What time will you pick me up?" Barry said, 7 o'clock. I replied, "Okay." I closed the phone, feeling frustrated. I wished Caden had spoken up. What was wrong with him? Couldn't he see how I felt about him? I climbed back onto the sofa, but my interest in anything had faded away. I just stared into space. I didn't stare for long. My phone rang again. Maybe Barry changed his mind. I opened the phone. It was Angie. "Angie?" I asked. She was crying. "Angie, what's wrong? I need you to come pick me up." I jumped to my feet. "Where are you?" "Down the street from Mr. Devereaux's." "Okay, Angie, I'll be right there." I thought about saying something to Caden, but decided against it. If Devereaux had upset Angie, Caden would want to confront him again. I went to my bedroom, where Caden first brought me when he bought me. I found a skirt and a blouse, quickly changed, grabbed my purse and the keys to Caden's car, and headed out. I drove quickly to Matt Devereaux's road and found Angie on the side of the road with her head in her hands. I stopped, unlocked the door, and she got in. "Oh, Caprice, he's such a jerk." "Why? What did he do?" "It's not what he did, it's what he tried to do." I sat in the driver's seat with the engine running and listened as Angie explained what happened. I felt disgusted. "Come on, I'll take you home." Angie cried, "Oh, I can't go there. Emily will." I stopped her. "I don't mean your mother's. I'm taking you to Caden's. That's where you should be." Angie stopped crying when I said that. I wasn't sure if it was because I wasn't taking her to her mother or because I said she belonged at Caden's. I took her home and settled her in my bed. I went to the kitchen and got her some orange juice. We lay down together. "Angie, we can't tell Caden about this." She took a sip, saying, "I know he'd just want to confront him again." I snuggled up to her and rubbed her head. He's some kind of hero, isn't he? We both laughed at that. She finished her juice, and after a while, the night turned out better than expected. Caden starts to stand up for himself, finally. I left Caprice in the living room and went to bed, trying to sleep. I felt like a failure. I kept asking myself the same questions. Why was I always listening to people like Bernard and Barry? Why did I care what Pastor Cook said about me and my girls? Caprice was right. I felt foolish. I knew Caprice loved me, and I believed I could include Angie and Emily in my life. What did I know? I knew one thing. I knew how to work. Maybe if I wanted my girls to be in my life, I should do more than feel sorry for myself. I couldn't sleep. I just tossed and turned all night. The next morning, long before the sun came up, I got up, dressed, and drove over to the town cemetery. I needed to talk to someone, and the only person I could think of was my Aunt Maggie. Even though she was gone, I knew where she was. I pulled into the cemetery and started to walk around. Everywhere I looked, I saw names of people I either knew or had heard of. The names were all similar. There were Camels, Careys, Campbells, Murrays, McGees, McCabe's, Cashes, McLeish's, McDonald's, Hamiltons, and many more. They all shared a history, worked hard, were honest, and faced their own sadness. They were also family-oriented, believed in God, paid their bills, took care of their kids, and went to church. Almost every grave had flowers or little plastic crosses on them. That's when it hit me. Most of them still had people who remembered them and cared enough to bring flowers to their graves. What does being a Christian mean? It's better to give than to receive. If you want something, you need to do more than wait. You actually have to go out and make it happen. If I wanted Caprice and Angie to care for me, I had to show them my love. But how was I going to do that? Aunt Maggie, Aunt Olive, Uncle Mitchell, and Uncle John all had similar advice for me. If you want love, you need to give it first. I realized that these older relatives had feelings for me. They just didn't always express them well. I thought back to my childhood. None of them ever treated me badly. Uncle Mitchell used to check the oil in my truck and would fill it if I was low on gas. Once, Uncle Johnny saved me from stepping on a snake, saying, "Caden, you could have gotten hurt." If I wanted my daughter in my life, I had to show her who I truly was. Buying her gifts like a pony or a dress was just stuff. Winning Angie's trust and proving I could be part of their lives meant showing my deeper feelings. That thought worried me. I loved Angie, but I loved Caprice too. Could I marry one without losing the other? How would that work? Then I knew what I had to do. I picked up my phone and called Del. It was close to 6 a.m. when he answered. I said, "Hello, Del, this is Caden. Do you know what time it is?" "Del, I need to learn how to dance." "You what?" "Del, today is Friday. There's a dance tomorrow night at Rehoboth, and I need to learn all the steps. Can you help me?" "Are you sure about this?" "I know what I need to do. Can you help or not?" After a brief pause, he said, "Well, I'm not a great dancer, and my girlfriend just moved on with someone else, but there is Sally Monroe who works at the Starlight in Bethany Beach. She might be able to help." "Del, please call her and ask." "I think she likes me. She might agree." I felt excited. "Awesome. Have her meet me at the horse barn today at noon." "I'll see what I can do. Practice is important." I was waiting when Del arrived with Sally. I turned my phone off. "Hi, Sally. You're one of the Monroes from Roxana," I said. Sally nodded. "Del mentioned you want to learn to dance?" I pointed to a CD player and a bunch of CDs I had bought. "There's a dance at the Rehoboth Fire Hall tomorrow night. I want to be a good dancer." Sally looked at Del, then back to me with a smile. "That's a big goal, but maybe one of the top 5 dancers?" Del asked, "What's going on, Uncle Caden?" I explained, "Barry is taking Caprice to the dance, and I'm sure Angie will be there with someone else. If I can impress them on the dance floor, it's a good start." Del smiled. "So you're finally stepping up?" "I certainly am. And if your ex-girlfriend is there, you might want to shine too," I joked, noticing Sally's shy smile. "With someone like her around, you might want to move forward." Del looked at Sally. "What do you think? Would you like to go to the dance with me?" She replied, "I have to work." I jumped in. "You don't have to. I have a new job opportunity that needs a morning supervisor, and I'll match your pay from the Starlight. Plus, you'll get a share of what the place earns." Dell was taken aback. That's a generous offer. I like Sally. I'm not telling you what to do, but she could be more than just a friend, I said, watching as Sally blushed. Dell stared at her thoughtfully. What do you say, Sally? She blushed even more. What? Dell nervously repeated what Caden said. Sally smiled. Okay, I'll go to the dance. Let me think about the job. I laughed. Great. Now let's get started with the lessons. I practiced dancing until nearly 6 o'clock that evening. Sally taught me how to cha-cha, waltz, line dance, and two-step. I even tried a little jitterbug, although I wasn't very good at it. I thought the two-step would be easy, but it was tougher than I expected. Dell and Sally stayed right with me. I had a great time learning, but honestly, I enjoyed watching Dell and Sally as they grew closer. It felt nice to play matchmaker. By 6 o'clock, we agreed to end for the night, but planned to meet again on Saturday at 1 o'clock for more practice. I told them not to stress about tickets. I wanted to take care of that. I planned to call Mark Fleming when I got home since he was with the Rehoboth Fire Department and could help me with tickets. We said goodbye and I headed home, knowing I'd be up early again to manage the farm. When I got home after 7 o'clock, Caprice was at the door. She didn't wait to ask, Caden, where have you been? I was at the horse barn most of the day. Why? Angie's had a rough day. That caught my attention. What happened? She had a bad date with Matt Devereaux last night. It sounds like he pressured her into something she didn't want. Oh no, I said. That's not all. She got a call from Devereaux this morning. He said the grant they relied on to keep her job ran out and now she's let go. Sounds like a bad situation. It got worse. After her call with Devereaux, she heard from social services. They found out she lost her job and want to check on her next week. They have received calls about her situation and want to make sure everything is okay. I didn't mind their concern. Seems like Devereaux is really active, I said with a smile. Caprice didn't laugh. Caden? She's scared. Before I could respond, she gently took my hand, brought it close, and whispered, I love you, Caden McLeish. I felt my heart warm. I held her cheeks gently and asked, What's going on? I'll do anything you want. Just promise me you won't get in any trouble tonight at the dance. She looked like she might cry. I softly rubbed her cheeks with my thumbs. Trouble? Me? Don't worry. I promise there won't be any. I could tell she wasn't fully convinced, but she gave a small smile before turning to cook breakfast. She placed 2 fried eggs and some bacon on a plate and handed it to me. Let's start the day off right. I took the plate and sat down to eat while she joined me with a smaller portion. I was careful with my thoughts, but then stood up and took her hand, leading her to the sofa. We sat close together, and she looked happy. I spent the morning cleaning the stalls, caring for the animals, and checking the fields. By 1 p.m., I was back at the barn where Dell and Sally were already practicing dance moves until 4 o'clock. Then Sally said, You might not be the best dancer, but I think you'll do fine tonight. I want both of you there with me, I replied. Dell smiled at Sally, both enjoying the moment. Don't worry, Uncle Dell, we'll be there. Sally then asked, Mr. McLeish, do you have a date? I laughed at that. All day I was Caden, now I was Mr. McLeish. Actually, Miss Monroe, I do. I'm taking my former wife, Angie, to the dance. Dell asked, Is that who this is for? I smiled shyly. Partly, but it's about Caprice, too. She'll be there, Dell said. Barry thinks she's his date. It might start that way, but I expect it to change. Dell nodded and smiled at Sally. Oh, I see. I kissed Sally on the forehead and shook Dell's hand. See you two tonight. Dell playfully nudged my arm. Tonight. Sally linked her arm with Dell's. Tonight, Uncle Caden. I laughed and left them at the barn while I drove home, arriving close to 5 o'clock. I had a few hours to rest and get ready. Barry arrived a little before 7 o'clock, and Caprice came out wearing a light blue shirt and dark blue jeans. She looked wonderful. Barry pulled up in his pickup truck, which surprised me since he usually drove a nice car. I wondered if he thought this would impress Caprice. Caprice kissed me goodbye before leaving. I reminded her, Don't forget who's taking you home tonight. She smiled and nodded. I won't forget. After they left, I jumped in my car and drove to get Angie. When I arrived, she and Emily were at the door. I watched as Angie said goodbye to our daughter. Be careful with that man, I overheard Emily say. Angie laughed and reassured her, I'll be safe. Make sure to mind your grandma and go to bed on time. Emily pointed at me jokingly, reminding me to behave. I waved back with a smile. She smiled too. Angie, who is a petite woman, wore a beautiful dark blue dress that shimmered as she moved. Her hair was tied back in pigtails with little bows. As she came closer, I noticed she looked like she did years ago when we were dating. I jumped out of my car, opened her door, and helped her in. Are you ready? I asked as I settled into the driver's seat. She leaned in, ready for the evening. We shared a sweet moment. She said, Let's pretend tonight is just like old times. I smiled and said, I'd love that, Angie. You look lovely tonight. She smiled back. You look great too, Caden. Just like you used to no fuss in jeans and a nice shirt. And you smell good. I turned on the radio and played a George Strait CD. Tonight I plan to dance. I'll dance with Caprice and with Sally Monroe, but mostly tonight I'm dancing with you. She looked at me curiously. You're dancing? I smiled back. Just wait and see. When we arrived at the dance, I parked my car, helped Angie out, and led her inside. Sally and Dell were already there. I scanned the room and saw Barry with Caprice talking to his friends. Bernard Keith was there too, chatting with his friends near the drinks. I found a table. Dell and Sally joined us, and I went to get 2 iced teas, one for Angie and one for myself. I planned to stick with tea tonight. The first dance was a line dance followed by an electric slide. Angie and I decided to sit those out, but then an old George Strait song started playing. As the music began, I stood up and held out my hand to Angie. She smiled a bit nervously and took it. I could tell she was unsure because dancing wasn't my thing. I led her to the dance floor, held her arm, and we began to move. I offered my hand to her again, and this time she took it with a twinkle in her eyes. She said softly, Caden, you can dance. I responded quietly, I've been waiting for this. Soon after, Bernard came over and tapped my shoulder. I'm cutting in, he said. I smiled at Angie, then turned to him and said, Not tonight, friend. He tried again. I said I was cutting in. Just then, 3 of my brothers appeared around us. Dell asked, Is there a problem, Bernard? Bernard looked at me, then my brothers, and said, No, I guess not. I realized this was my chance. I looked around at my brothers, then at Dell. Thanks. It feels good to have family close by. It was a good thing there weren't any windows nearby. Those smiles could have broken glass. Honestly, it surprised me. I had never really thanked my family before. I felt a rush of humility wash over me. Angie and I shared a few more dances. Then the music changed to an old song called Smoke Gets in Your Eyes. I held Angie close, remembering when we first got married. A lump formed in my throat as I smiled down at her, and I could see she felt the same way. After we danced, I took her back to our table where Dell and Sally were sitting. I asked Dell, Is that your old girlfriend over there with the guy in the jacket? He looked over and nodded. Yeah, that's her. I saw uncertainty on Sally's face and hoped Dell wouldn't make things harder for her. But then Olivia, Dell's old girlfriend, came over to us. Hey, Dell, can I have a dance with you? She asked. Dell looked up and smiled. Hi, Livy. How are you? I wondered how Olivia felt. Her date seemed uneasy standing there. Most people were familiar faces to him. Why don't you bring your friend over so we can meet? I suggested. Olivia glanced at me and then at Dell. He doesn't dance. I thought I'd ask Dell for a dance. Sally looked worried and I could almost see tears in her eyes. I knew what was happening and hoped Dell would handle it well. He did. Dell turned to Sally. I want to dance a bit more. How about it? He reached out to her. Sally and Dell stood up and went to the dance floor. I turned to Olivia and said, I'll dance with you. She smiled sadly. That's okay, and walked back to her date. I took Angie's hand and led her back onto the dance floor. While we swayed to the music, I whispered to her, Do you see Caprice? Is she with Barry? She rested her head on my chest, and I loved how close she felt. She replied softly, Yes, I can see them. I gently raised her chin to look at me. I need to talk to her. Promise you won't be upset. To my surprise, she said, If you get her tonight, you might just win us all back. I paused, taken aback by what she said. In that moment, I held Angie's face in my hands and shared a deep kiss, our bond clear to those nearby. Our shared history unfolded right there on the dance floor. After a moment, I took her hand and led her off the floor. I felt a little foolish. I kept thinking, if I had known it would be this easy to win my ex-wife back, I wouldn't have waited so long. Just foolish, I guess, like Caprice said. Just another simple farmer. Then again, I wondered, maybe Angie had to be ready too. Back at the table, I told Angie, I need to speak with Caprice. She looked serious and said, with the way things are now or on better terms. I tried to remember all I learned in school, but she came up with a saying, win or fail, come back in victory or not at all. I stated, no backing down. Tonight we all go home together. I stood up and walked toward where Caprice was sitting with Barry. Just as I arrived, the DJ started playing a Waylon Jennings song. I approached, ignoring Barry, and said to Caprice, I believe this is our dance. Barry opened his mouth to say something, but Caprice raised her hand to stop him. She stood and replied, yes, it is. Caprice took my hand and we stepped onto the dance floor. We enjoyed the Jennings song, followed by a lively tune. We were lost in the moment when the DJ played another song. As the last note faded, Caprice leaned in and I leaned down. It felt like magic. I wrapped my arms around her and she held me tightly. I was filled with happiness. That's when Barry approached, trying to reclaim his date. He stepped closer and said, come on. I felt a little concerned, but Caprice handled it calmly. She looked at Barry and responded gently, Barry, I'm sorry. You're a nice guy, but this isn't working out. I choose Caden. Barry looked heartbroken. I felt a touch of sympathy, but reminded myself, sorry, Barry, she's coming home with me. His expression changed from surprise to pain. He looked between us and walked away angrily. The rest of the evening was quiet. I danced a few more times with Angie and Caprice before we decided to leave. By 11:30, we got ourselves together and headed for my car, while two groups of guys watched us. Bernard was with his friends, and Barry had his crew. They could follow us, but they knew the girls were with me. I felt like royalty. I helped Caprice into the back seat and Angie into the front. I needed to drop Angie off while Caprice was coming home with me. We got to Mrs. Bradford's around 12:30. A light was on in the living room. I walked Angie to the door and said goodnight. See you at church tomorrow. She smiled and went inside, then came back out to take my hand. Take off your shoes and follow me. I followed her quietly. We tiptoed down the hall to the stairs, and she whispered, be very quiet. We climbed the stairs to what I remembered was Angie's room. She gestured for silence and opened the door. A nightlight softly lit the room. She led me to her bed, where my daughter Emily was asleep. Angie rested her head on my arm and whispered, isn't she beautiful? There she was, my daughter, breathing softly. Angie gripped my arm, tears in her eyes. I love her more than anything, she said. Caden, please don't let anyone take her away from me. I felt a lump in my throat. I wrapped my arms around Angie. I already promised you. No one will ever take her from you. Angie gently led me out of the room. I didn't resist because I knew soon she and the child would be safe with me. She led me back to the front of the house and we shared a warm moment at the door. I returned to the car with Caprice, feeling happy about the night. I had everything I desired. The oyster supper was coming up the next day, and I planned to go horseback riding with Caprice the following Monday. Still, I felt nervous about how to tell her what I knew about her real identity. That thought made me uneasy. I decided while Caden was with Angie that our night wouldn't end until I was back with him. Our past meetings had been great, and I wanted him to know it was more than a one-time thing. When I got home, I waited for him to open my door. I appreciated his kindness. In my past, doors were only held open for less than good reasons. I hoped she would understand, but that didn't make my situation easier. I cared about 3 people, my former wife, my sweet little girl, and this other person who unexpectedly entered my life. I wanted all 3 of them. I needed them, but I knew there was God. I had to trust He would help me through this. No, I started to push back. I knew who I had to have. They were mine. I raised my fist toward the ceiling. I called out loudly, "They're mine! I won't let them go! All 3 of them!" It was time to face reality. A fresh perspective came on Sunday at church and during the ham and oyster supper. I never expected this day would turn out to be so important. Let me put things in order. I needed to think clearly. So, I welcomed Caprice into my life the Sunday night after our church's Palm Sunday services. Maundy Thursday, Easter Sunday, and the days following are all clear in my mind. I remember the Memorial Day activities I enjoyed. Our fire hall always hosted fun events the week before that holiday. During summer, Angie worked at the library and dated Matt Devereaux. I felt uneasy when I met him, but thankfully her relationship with Matt ended. During that time, I helped Caprice with dental and medical care. I even tried to remove some of her tattoos, though some remained. I did manage to get rid of an unwanted barcode tattoo on her shoulders. Even if it seemed like everything centered around the girls, my summer was mostly about work. The beaches were busy, and Angie, Emily, and Caprice visited several times. I advised them to be careful with the sun. I had other worries, too. I thought Caprice's past made her vulnerable, while Angie had very fair skin, and Emily was still quite young. I was lucky that Caprice took charge over the summer, caring for Angie and Emily. It was clear everyone looked up to her. She provided a loving presence. I did go crabbing and fishing a few times, but kept those outings private so I could have time to think. Our state's fair took place over Labor Day weekend. Unfortunately, since it was far away, most of us missed it. The fair was busy with various local events, but for many, Labor Day signaled the end of summer. To make up for being far from the state fair and enjoy the last beach weekend, our fire hall always hosted a carnival the week before. Our ham and oyster dinner was set for when the carnival vendors arrived. They usually came late Sunday night after leaving Georgetown. Everyone always loved the carnival, and I knew Caprice would too, so I decided to wait to share what I needed to tell her until later in the week. I wanted to keep her from finding out too soon, worried she might leave and not come back. I wanted to make this time truly special for her. I consider myself a good Christian. I believe in traditional values. God loves me, but I know it isn't without conditions. I cared deeply for 3 girls, willing to give up everything to keep them close. But I also understood my faith. It seemed likely I could keep 2 of them, but 3 was unlikely. That wouldn't stop me from trying. As September came, it meant a change, and this year it was time for the ham and oyster supper. As I mentioned, the supper was a significant moment for me. I should have seen the signs during the dance the night before when my family gathered. The first surprise came when I got a call from Angie before church. She had a disagreement with her mother and asked if Caprice and I could take her to church instead. I suggested we could all ride in my truck, which was clean and spacious. We made our way over, managing to fit my ex-wife and daughter in the truck with Caprice. It felt like a positive experience. The next surprise appeared when we arrived at church. Most of my siblings, along with their families, went to different churches. However, that morning as I entered, I found them all at mine. Dell and Sally were there, and Dell had saved us a whole pew. I was surprised. How did Dell know I would be bringing Emily and Angie too? We all sat through the service, sang, and listened to the children's message. It was a delightful moment when Emily had to crawl over me to get to the front of the church. She confidently placed her small hand on my shoulder as she passed by. Her little shoes scuffed my pants, but I couldn't help but feel joyful. After church, we all gathered outside on the grass and chatted. Although we were just chatting, being there with my brothers and sisters made me feel part of the family. It wasn't overly sentimental, but we were just being ourselves. Barry was there, and when Caprice saw him, she took my hand and gave me a friendly kiss on the cheek. Angie stood close by and held my hand a few times. I watched Emily as she played happily with her cousins. I felt a mix of emotions, thinking about wanting to connect with Emily, and realizing that telling Caprice about what I had learned would be difficult. I got my girls in the truck to head to the fire hall for dinner. To my surprise, when we arrived, Dell and Sally had saved seats right in the center of a big area set aside for family. I was surrounded by my family, and they all acted like this was normal for them. For them, it was. But for me, it was a first. I had often felt left out, but today I felt included and appreciated. Emily ran joyfully from table to table with her cousins, while Angie chatted with my siblings as if they were old friends. Some of my sisters, in-law and my sister, pulled Caprice aside to talk. and my oldest brother, who I thought might be upset with me, even took a moment to talk about the weather and crops. I was surprised. As the evening went on, I felt a rush of emotions, and I was relieved when we finally left. Otherwise, I might have found it hard to hold it together. It had been a whirlwind of experiences: the dance, Angie's visit with her mother, a lovely evening with Caprice, church, and now dinner. I promised myself to thank Dell for everything. After dinner, we took Angie and Emily back to her mother's house. I sensed that Angie still needed some time before she was ready to fully let go, but I knew that day was not far away. In Pennsylvania, Aaron Giles sat across from Vincent Spiridakos. I'm telling you, I know it's her. Green eyes, reddish-brown hair, and she lives with a farmer named McLeish. Vince looked back, confused. So what? I sold her months ago. I just want you to know this farmer is doing well, and he has taken good care of her. She's doing fine. You mean this farmer lives south of Georgetown? Yeah, he has a big farm, and he and others sell vegetables to people on vacation. They make a lot of money. Do you know where he lives? Yeah. I mean, specifically. Yes, specifically. Shaker, take this guy upstairs. Make sure he gets to see Monica, he said with a smile. Think of it as a nice bonus visit tonight. Giles nodded and got ready to leave, extending his hand. Vince didn't shake his hand. Before you go, give Shaker your phone number. Giles agreed. Sure. I needed to talk to Caprice, but I was not sure how to start. Since I found out about her past, I kept thinking of reasons to avoid the subject of her parents. I knew the longer I waited, the harder it would be, but I hesitated to bring it up. Eventually, I came up with a plan. I waited for the Tuesday 2 weeks after the carnival. Emily was at preschool, I had Angie at one of our roadside stands, and Caprice was at home with some time to herself. My plan was simple. I would gather everything I thought Caprice would need for a trip I believed she needed to take, and arrange a nice lunch in a quiet restaurant. I bought some luggage and convinced Caprice to visit Angie while she worked. While she was out, I packed her clothes into a suitcase, a smaller bag, and a cosmetic bag. I loaded these into a gently used Honda I had picked up. On the passenger seat, I placed a briefcase with a bank book that had a good balance, a Visa card, a new cell phone, and personal paperwork I thought she might need. I also included a brief personal note. I had Dell drive the Honda to the Olive Garden parking lot on the coastal highway because I sensed it was time. The final thing I did was enjoy a peaceful evening at home with Caprice. I prepared a nice dinner, trying my best to be a warm and caring partner. The next morning, I left before Caprice was awake. I drove to the roadside stand to pick her up and took her out to lunch. Caprice sensed that something was bothering Caden. I could tell there was something on his mind, but I couldn't quite figure it out. He picked me up at the vegetable stand where Angie had been working. I had been watching how they interacted. Caden was supportive of Angie, just as I expected, but her response to him was surprising. I was proud of her, but I also felt a bit jealous. Every morning, the look on his face when he leaves to pick up his ex-wife was one of happiness. He's still kind to me. In fact, he's more than kind, he's amazing. We share close moments nearly every night. He is thoughtful and caring. I can tell he has been lonely for some time. He seems to value the time we spend together, even the quiet moments after we are together. Even though I don't always feel the same joy, he keeps trying. I treasure our connection. I dream of the day we might start a family together and he accepts my hopes. I can't help but feel excited about him. It feels like love, or at least how I thought love would be when I was younger. I think about him all day, the way he holds me, plays with my hair, and how he brings warmth to our evenings. I enjoy being close to him, feeling our bond grow through small gestures. Caden treats me well. Even on those nights when he's tired, I don't pressure him because what matters most to me is our time together. I feel happy all day. I take joy in doing little things for him, from taking care of his clothes to planning our meals. It feels great to see him enjoy the meals I make, and I like hearing his nice words. I've been going to the store to buy things for our home, which is something I never thought I would look forward to. Choosing what to get helps me feel normal, like I am starting a new part of my life. I picture our lives together as if we were married. A few months ago, I felt lost. But now I feel part of something special. Even if it's just a dream, it makes me happy. I've made friends and connect with other women who have similar lives. We share recipes and chat about our days. I find joy in little things like flipping through magazines while I run errands, feeling like an everyday person. Sometimes when I come home, the happiness feels too big to handle. It's amazing to think about. I'm living a dream. But deep down, I still want to be a mom. The thought of being pregnant one day fills me with hope. This morning, Caden suggested I help Angie at her stand for a while. It's her job, but he wants her to earn a little more and feel strong on her own. While we were together, Angie shared stories about her first days at school. I could tell she was trying to stay positive, but something felt off. She seemed a bit anxious, and I picked up on something weighing on her mind. Caden picked me up before I had the chance to eat my lunch. I had packed a cooler with a half sandwich and some fruit, but he wanted to take me out instead. We arrived at the Olive Garden well after 2 o'clock. Caden seemed a little tense. Before we walked in, he looked around the parking lot as if he was waiting for someone. Whatever was bothering him seemed to settle as he took my arm and led me into the restaurant. A young waitress showed us to a small table by a big window. It was a lovely, bright day, and the restaurant wasn't busy. I noticed Caden had picked a nice spot with a great view. He ordered for both of us lasagna, a salad, and a carafe of red wine. As we enjoyed our meal, he talked mostly about the farm, the dry weather, and how much he loves fishing. He promised to take me fishing soon. I was having a great time. Earlier, I felt like there might be a change during my day with Angie, but I brushed it off, thinking I was silly for worrying. Then, when the waitress finished clearing our plates and brought our coffees, I noticed Caden's mood became serious. My morning worry returned. He started to say, "Caprice, this is really hard for me, but there's something I need to discuss." I bit my lip, sensing that this might not be good. A thread of fear started to pull tight in my chest. "Caprice, dear, I need to tell you something." I found myself gripping the edge of the table, a wave of anxiety washing over me. I was scared to look down, worried about how I might appear. My heart raced in anticipation of what he would say. He said, "I have to be honest." I watched him closely as his eyes glistened with unshed tears. I wondered if he was about to tell me he and Angie were getting back together and that I would have to leave. If that was the case, I was ready to step aside. I could find a place nearby and be just a friend or neighbor if it meant supporting them. I prepared myself to be strong. I told him, "I can handle it, sweetheart, just tell me. Whatever it is, we'll face it together, all three of us." Then he said it. "Caprice isn't your real name. Your real name is Lauren. Your last name is Fisher. Your parents are still alive. They live in Rochester, New York. Your father is a minister. They have been searching for you for over 12 years. I was shocked. I had parents? They were alive? In New York? My stomach felt like it was in knots. "This can't be true," I said. "Caden." He stopped me. "Caprice, or I should say Lauren. It seems you must have left home just after you turned 18. I had someone help look into your parents. They don't know where you are, but they are really worried." I felt numb. I tried to remember anything from my past. I had a faint memory of being in a church, but it was like a distant dream. I was an only child. My parents were older. I looked at Caden and said, "I don't understand. How did you find out?" He reached across and took my hand. "I found your fingerprints on a glass. You have a record. From that, it was easy to trace back. Your parents have been looking for you for a long time." I felt hollow inside. My heart raced. I could feel what was coming. My mind shouted, "No, Caden, please!" I could see it about to come from his lips. I interrupted. "You want me to go see them?" He squeezed my hands gently. "This is so hard for me. I care about you, but I wouldn't forgive myself if you have family who—" A wave of sadness swept over me. "You want me to leave? You're sending me away." I realized my words were part of a defense mechanism. I knew he didn't want to push me away, but with my parents looking for me, he felt he had to do something. He said, "No, I don't want you to leave, but you need to. You have to see your mom and dad. They need to know you're okay. They love you, Lauren. You're everything to them." I pulled my hands away and pushed back my chair, feeling angry and sad. "Fine, I'll leave now," I said, feeling frantic. I only wanted to hurt him with my words. Seeing his pain left me feeling torn. This was unbelievable. I had parents I needed to meet. Home? This was home. Guilt and shame washed over me. He replied, It's not what I want. Angie is as heartbroken as I am. I've made plans. I felt trapped. This wasn't right. I wanted to get up and run from the table. I felt overwhelmed. But then my worry turned to frustration. Oh, you have. He cut in. I got you a car. It's in your name. There's a GPS inside with directions to your parents' house. Dell parked it outside earlier. He's worried about you. I arranged for you to have some bags with your clothes. There's also a bank account and a credit card with $5,000 on it. I'm sorry I didn't think about your credit score. I was taken aback. I knew he was right, even if it was hard to admit. I held out my hand. Keys. He nervously reached into his pocket, his hands shaking. He pulled out a set of keys. It's a gray Honda Accord. It's parked 2 cars away from our truck. I stood up to leave. He looked at me with tears in his eyes. Caprice, I love you. I will always love you. I guess you were right. I'm just an ordinary guy. His words made me feel heavy inside. I knew I had to go. I didn't know what to say. I was angry, sad, and confused. I held up the keys. Well, I guess this is goodbye. Tears streamed down his cheeks. I needed to get away. I turned and hurried out of the building. I ran, crying all the way to the parking lot. I pressed the button to turn on the car lights, found the car, got in, started the engine, backed up, and drove off. I watched as she hurried out of the restaurant. I wished I could run after her, to stop her, hold her, and never let her go. I wanted to reassure her that she didn't have to leave. Dell was outside when I reached the parking lot. He quietly said, "She's gone, huh?" I nodded. "Yeah, she's gone." "What will you do now?" I shrugged, trying to hide my emotions. "Angie wanted me to pick her up and take her home. I guess I'll go to her stand." I noticed Dell had been crying. He said, "I'll be at the Barnes if you need me." I tried to smile. "Okay, thanks, Dell." I got in my truck and drove to Angie's stand. Angie's pain. Caden took me back to my mother's place. Emily would be home soon. I told my little girl about Caprice that morning. She cried at first, then got upset. She wanted to know why I couldn't make Caprice stay. Emily had grown fond of her, just like I had. Caprice and I had discussed our feelings. I told her I didn't see myself as a lesbian, but I knew I loved her and enjoyed being with her. Life without her felt impossible. During our talks, Caprice shared how she had faced tough times, but understood that friendship and love were what truly mattered to our relationship. We spoke about our bond, which was built on a deep connection. The days after Caprice left were tough. I cried often. Before she arrived in my life, I had focused all my energy on my anger for Caden. When Caprice came along, my anger turned into friendship and love. Now that she was gone, I felt empty. By the end of that first week, I began to realize that Caprice had given me the gift of seeing others differently. I noticed that Caden looked as unhappy and lonely as I felt. At first, I felt sad for him, but soon I acknowledged that my feelings for Caden went deeper. I truly cared for him. I loved his warm smile and silly jokes, and I enjoyed his company. It was funny. Caprice loved him, and so did I. If she were still around, she could have the closeness. I wanted his tenderness. I came to a hard truth. My pride was what kept me from him. I talked to my mother about needing to see Caden. Our talks started off calmly, but soon they became heated. My mother didn't want me to see him, blaming him for my past troubles and fearing I would leave her. Emily was struggling too. She missed Caprice but was starting to understand more as the kids at school teased her. I knew I needed to deal with that soon. One evening, while my mother was making dinner, things escalated. Because of Caden, I had a job and he had made sure Emily was safe. I told my mother I needed to see him to fix things. She reacted strongly. I remember it was a difficult argument. Mrs. Bradford frowned. "Angie, if you leave now, don't expect to come back. Come on, Emily, we'll pack some things. It's time we go." "But Mommy, where are we going?" "I'm tired. I have school tomorrow." "I know you're tired, sweetie. I know you have school. But this is long overdue. I need to take charge." "Take charge, Mommy. I don't understand." "You will. We're going for a walk tonight." I glanced at the clock. It was 8:30. I had to go. It was time. If I didn't act now, I would be stuck under my mother's control forever. I owed it to my little girl. I tried smiling. "Come on, Emily, let's go upstairs." We went upstairs to pack for the short walk. It was about a quarter-mile, but as I packed the small bag I could call my own, I knew it would feel like the longest walk of my life. "Mommy, can I take Candyland?" "Of course, sweetie. Let me tape the box so nothing falls out." I found some tape and secured the lid. "There, you carry that, and I'll carry our clothes." I packed as many of Emily's things as I could. "Ready, honey?" "Mommy, you didn't pack anything for yourself?" "I'll be fine, sweetie." I took her tiny hand and led her down the stairs and out the front door. As we walked down the drive, my mom shouted, "You'll regret this!" Emily and I just kept walking. I heard my mom shout again, "I lied. You know you can come back any time. I'm here, and I'll always be here for you." I knew that. It was a warm October evening. A bright harvest moon lit our way. I had walked this road many times before on foot, in Caden's pickup, and as a teenager on my bike. The bag I carried was light, but after a while I could see my girl starting to get tired. I leaned down and picked her up so she could rest on my hip. "Come on, sweetheart. You can hold the game. I'll carry you." "I'm not too heavy, am I, Mommy?" I remembered an old song and kissed her cheek as I struggled along the road, singing to her, "You ain't heavy, you're my baby." Maybe I got the words wrong, but it worked for me. Emily cuddled her head under my chin. When she shifted, I almost lost my footing. "Hey, watch it, sweetie. Mommy almost fell." "Sorry, Mommy." I glanced down the road. My arm was getting tired. My jacket had started to ride up, and the small bag was digging into my shoulder. I told myself it was only about 20 minutes. I could make it. It was past 8:30, and I was feeling worn out. I hadn't slept well lately. Caprice had been away for over a week, and I wished she would call. I missed her a lot. Angie missed her too, and had been a bit difficult every morning when I picked her up for work. It was hard to read Angie's mood. Maybe she was upset because Caprice was gone, or because I got to her mom's house before Emily's bus arrived. I did that so I could see my two girls, but it could be due to her mother. I often heard them arguing in the mornings. After I showered, I drank a big glass of milk. I went to the front door to check that it was locked and the porch light was off. Everything was in order. I started toward my bedroom. I still used the smaller room across from the bigger one. One can always hope. I walked past the sofa and the widescreen TV. Once I reached my room, I'd close the door and escape into sleep until morning. Just as I got to my bedroom door, I heard someone knocking at the front door. I sighed, wondering who could it be. Probably Dell or Aubrey, I thought. I shuffled back to the door. If it was Dell, he'd let himself in. I turned the outside light back on, unlocked the door, and opened it. Angie set her daughter down and dropped the bag on the porch. With a hand on each of her daughter's shoulders, she quietly said, "Emily, this is Caden McLeish. He's your daddy." For a moment, I was completely shocked. I couldn't think, move, or speak. Though it only lasted a second, it felt like forever. I shook myself out of it and dropped to my knees, reaching out to my daughter. I whispered, "Hi, Emily." Emily, surprised and a bit scared, pulled back into her mother's arms. Angie knelt beside her. "Don't be afraid, honey. He really is your daddy, and he loves you very much." Emily stood still. Angie got back up and started to pass her to me. I stood too, amazed at Angie's strength. She was not much bigger than Emily. As she handed her to me, I reached out and pulled both mother and child close. Holding them tightly in my arms, I marveled at the joy and tears in my heart. I whispered, "Come in, please, come in." I couldn't help but start crying. Emily sat stiffly in my arms. Angie's hands were still on her. Angie was crying too. She whispered to our girl, "This is your daddy, sweetheart. Let him hold you." Emily slowly leaned forward and reached out. I lifted her gently and kissed her cheeks. At the same time, I gave Angie a soft hug. I half-carried my two girls to the sofa, sitting them down. Emily on my lap, Angie beside me. Holding Emily tightly, I pulled Angie close and kissed her softly, feeling a mix of overwhelming happiness and tears in my heart. She leaned forward and smiled at me. Emily looked up and softly asked, "Are you really my daddy?" I nodded. "I really am." She turned to her mother. "He really is?" Angie leaned in and assured her, "Yes, Emily, he really is." With a hint of confusion, Emily asked, "Do you want to play Candyland?" I looked at Angie. She smiled and brushed a few loose strands of hair from our daughter's face. "Not tonight, it's bedtime. Don't forget you have school tomorrow. How about a glass of milk before bed?" Emily looked at me, and I gently touched her chin with my finger. "Mommy decides, honey." It was clear she was tired. Emily sighed. "Okay, milk tonight, but tomorrow." She held up her Candyland game. Both Angie and I nodded. Angie whispered, "Right after school." She looked at me and asked, "Where?" I cleared my throat. "The big bed where you and Caprice used to sleep." That caught Emily's interest. "Is Auntie Caprice here?" I gently replied, "She's not here right now." Emily seemed to think for a moment and then said, "Oh, okay. I'm ready for bed now." Angie took her hand and led her to the main bedroom, and I followed. As we reached the door, Emily turned to me and said, "Tomorrow?" I felt a rush of happiness and agreed, "Tomorrow, Candyland." Angie entered the bedroom, and I heard Emily ask, "He really is my daddy?" Angie answered, "Yes, sweetheart, he really is." I leaned against the wall, feeling happy. I knew sleep would be hard for me now. Thoughts of lists filled my mind. Angie and I needed to go shopping for toys, clothes, curtains, and everything little girls need. I felt a thrill I finally had my girls. I had someone to care for. But then I paused, wondering where Caprice was. What if she decided not to return? What if she ran away again? That thought filled me with worry. I knew I couldn't let that happen. My mind was made up. I didn't have to say it out loud. I thought about the stories from the Bible. I was sure I had done the right thing by sending Caprice to find her parents, and I believed that is where she had gone. I would give her a little time, but like the story of the lost sheep, I knew where her parents lived, and I would go get her back. She was mine, after all. For Caprice, the journey continues. After leaving the Olive Garden, I realized I couldn't stay close to Caden. I needed to leave quickly. I drove all afternoon and into the night, choosing a different road than the GPS suggested. Instead of taking the northeastern route that would have led me near Philadelphia and New York City, I chose to head west. I crossed the Chesapeake Bay Bridge, went west of Baltimore, then took I-70 to I-81. This way, I would get through Maryland, pass through central Pennsylvania, and into New York. Tired as I was when I reached the Maryland-Pennsylvania line, I decided to stop at a motel for the night. Caden had left me a box and some papers in a folder. Before I hit the road again in the morning, I decided to look through them. I laid everything out on the bed: a bank book, a checking account booklet, a Visa card, insurance information, the car title, and 2 envelopes. I opened the thicker envelope first. There were no pictures, but I found my arrest record, information about my parents, and documents showing their search efforts for me. It made me feel sad. They must have spent a lot of money. I read everything again and again. I remembered some things, but most of it was still unclear. My father was a minister in Rochester, and my mother had worked as his secretary. I could tell that I was born when they were older. If I was 30, my mother was probably about 69 or 70, and my father was around 71, depending on their birthdays. It became clear to me what had happened. I had turned 18 and run away. I couldn't remember why. Somehow I had gotten involved with some bad influences. One thing led to another, and after 12 years, I ended up in a central Pennsylvania tavern where Caden had stepped in. I glanced at the second envelope. I knew it had a letter from Caden, but I hesitated to open it. I thought about everything that had happened to me. I had a childhood, parents, and had faced many challenges. But the most important thing was what was in that second envelope. That kind-hearted farmer from the Eastern Shore had changed my life. He had helped me heal, offered me a home, and welcomed me into a community where I could feel like I belonged. Thanks to him, I felt accepted and connected with people, from chatting at the supermarket to enjoying time at the beach with friends. However, despite all he had done, he had also brought my past to light and set me back on my path, leaving me feeling lost again. In 7 months, I had changed from being a scared person without a home to someone trying to figure out who I was. Thanks, Caden. I appreciated it, but it was bittersweet. I opened the second envelope. Yes, he had written a letter. I opened it and read it. He was very straightforward. "Dear Lauren," he started, "I only have 5 things to say. First, don't worry about Angie and Emily. I'll take care of them. Second, I know it will be tough, but you need to see your parents. They have been looking for you for 12 years. You need to reconnect. Third, above all, I love you. I will love you all my life. I mean it. I'll love you until I die. Fourth, I'll wait for you. You owe me nothing, but I want you to know I'll always be here for you. Fifth, you have a car and a phone. The GPS can help you get back to me if you ever want to. I've saved my landline and cell number in your phone. That's all I have to say. If you have any worries, remember what I said in number 3. If that's not enough, then think about number 4. Love, Caden. I read the letter several times. He had a clear way of speaking. How could you not appreciate someone like that? I put the letter away and curled up on the bed. I thought about Caden, that wonderful man. I knew I had to find my parents. After that, I sort of had a plan. I got up and changed into something comfortable. I spent the next couple of hours thinking about my feelings. I had promised myself that only one man has truly affected my life, and if I live another 100 years, no other man ever would. I felt a bit unsure about my thoughts of the future. I remembered my time with Caden. There was definitely a bond that made me feel hopeful. Breakfast at Caden's. I woke up early, wanting to prepare everything, so when Emily came out, she could pick what she wanted for breakfast. The farm had plenty of choices: eggs, sausage, pancakes, you name it. Emily came out in a cute little dress, her hair in pigtails. I could see she was a little unsure, maybe anxious. I offered my best smile. "Who's ready for breakfast?" I listed the options. Angie yawned and said, "Just coffee for me." I began to pour her a cup, remembering how she liked it. While I stirred it, I asked Emily, "And what about you, sweet girl?" Emily looked at me thoughtfully. "Could I have some French toast?" I smiled and said, "French toast coming right up." I quickly prepared the eggs and milk, mixing them together. Angie watched from the dining room chair. Emily sat close at the kitchen counter. "So you're my real dad." I grinned. "I sure am. Mommy always said you were tough." I shifted from smiling to sincere. "I've made mistakes in the past, especially with your mom, but that's behind me. You'll always see me being nice to your mom." "Why?" "Why was I mean?" She nodded. "I was making some French toast, cooking it in a pan." I tried to explain, "When you really care about someone, you can act in ways that seem strange." "You love my mommy?" I finished the toast and put it on a plate along with butter and syrup for Emily. I looked at Angie and said, "I love your mommy a lot." Emily then asked, "Do you love me?" I set a napkin next to her plate as she cut her toast. "Yes, I love you too." Emily kept eating, clearly excited. She said, "I have a pony." "I know that. His name's Johnny." Emily looked surprised and asked, "How did you know?" I glanced at Angie for confirmation. "I got him for you." Emily paused. "You did?" I nodded. She asked, "Why?" "You're my little girl. I love you, and I wanted you to have a pony. Do you like him?" She smiled brightly. "Yeah, I like Johnny." She turned to her mom. "Time for school." She got up and headed to the front door, then looked back at me. "You'll be here when I get home?" I smiled. "Absolutely." I had plenty to do, but I knew I would be back to greet her when she got off the bus. It was amazing how quickly she became such an important part of my life. Angie helped Emily with her jacket and put on her own, saying, "I'll be right back." I looked around and said, "Don't try to take her all the way to the bus stop. Why not drive her to school?" "Caden, I haven't driven in years. My dad took my license. I don't have a car. You know that." I turned and tossed my keys to her. "You need to start driving again." "We'll get your license back when you return." As they walked out, Emily stopped and turned around. I knew she wanted to talk to me. "I wish Auntie Caprice was here." I didn't look up. I kept busy with the dishwasher, but replied, "Me too." "Who am I? Caprice? Lauren?" I took my time driving to Rochester. I needed to think. I was scared. What would I say? After what had happened with those 2 older people, what could I say? I reached Rochester and followed the GPS to my old home. Once I entered the neighborhood, memories started flooding back. I drove past my old high school, then the middle school, and finally my old elementary school. They seemed familiar but looked worn down. I somehow remembered where our church was. It was called Highland Presbyterian. I noticed my dad's name wasn't on the sign anymore. I assumed he must have retired. It felt strange. I thought it would still be there. I drove down my old street. The houses looked a bit run down, but overall they seemed familiar. I recognized some landmarks. Someone had put up a mirrored globe in their yard when I was a kid. It was still there. Some trees had been cut down, and I remembered the stumps. I recognized most things, but somehow they felt distant. It was like I knew everything, but they belonged to someone else. Everything was familiar, yet nothing stood out. Finally, I reached the address, 8257 Sycamore. I drove by slowly. The people living there must have just gotten a new car. It was a Chevrolet. I remembered my dad always drove Chevys. I made a U-turn and passed by again. I noticed the rose bushes and the swing on the front porch, a memory from long ago. I drove by as slowly as I could, trying to see the backyard. My mind was racing. I spotted the swing set. When I was little, my dad and I had set it up together. Well, he set it up while I talked and played. I remembered wearing buttons and little medals on my shirt, with a plastic ring and an aerial wristwatch. I had been wearing a Mickey Mouse t-shirt. We'd gone to Disney World together. I remembered that. I remembered how much I adored him. Suddenly, I felt overwhelmed and tears came. I could hear his voice gently reminding me, "Now, Lauren, what would Jesus do? You know how much we love you." I had run away. I had been unkind. I felt like I couldn't be forgiven for what I had done. I pressed my foot down on the gas pedal. I needed to leave. Memories of my mom came rushing back, her apple pies, bread pudding, and the moments we shared at choir practice, dance lessons, and Girl Scouts. I felt an urgency to escape. I had the perfect life, the best family, and I had run away. Why? I drove to a nearby motel, a Motel 6. I got a room, bought some drinks, went inside, cried, and tried to sleep. I had to figure everything out. I knew I needed to see my mom and dad, but I realized I couldn't face them. I had hurt them too much. I lay there on the bed, trying to remember. Through the night, I lay awake and tried to recall my past. Mostly, I cried. I remembered bits and pieces, going to New York to see cats, my records, a unicorn poster, rainbow wallpaper. I thought of sleepovers, good friends, and getting great grades in school. I liked English, but not history. I ran away, probably to be with someone who turned out to be different than I expected. I remembered places, Buffalo, possibly Detroit. I thought of being lost and moving from one place to another. I recalled Chicago and maybe Indianapolis. I recognized Scranton, Harrisburg, and finally East Berlin or Dillsburg. Yes, I had been around, but I only remembered a few people, not nearly as many as I should. I faced a lot of challenges I shouldn't have had to. I recalled feeling lost, not having clothes that fitted, and not enough to eat. I remembered times at parties where I felt out of place and moments that left me puzzled. By sunrise, I thought about why I had left home. I needed to find my way back. I decided to keep an eye on my parents' house to see what they were doing. I felt unsure. Who was I? What was I doing? I had been through a lot, and now I felt scared to face my own parents. 12 years had been hard, and I wasn't sure I could talk to them. Caden was called out. I had been driving my tractor down the road, moving from one field to another when I stopped at the Gas and Go for a soda. I had cut the tall grass around the fields to make it easier for the harvesters. I liked Pepsi. Just as I was about to get back on my tractor, someone came up to me. The person smiled and said, "Hey, are you Caden McLeish?" I turned around. He didn't seem intimidating. "Yeah," I replied. I used to be more confrontational, but not anymore. I asked, "What do you need?" He reached out his hand with a grin. "My name's not important. Most people just call me Spike." I could see why. His hair was styled in spikes. I asked again, "What do you need?" He smiled, that familiar smile. "We have a mutual friend named Vince. You remember Vince from Pennsylvania?" I glanced at his car, a newer model with Pennsylvania plates. I recalled Vince as the one who sold me Caprice. I must have looked surprised because Spike's smile grew wider. He continued, "Vince wants to know how Caprice is doing. He wants to buy her back." I held my breath. "She's not for sale." Still smiling, he asked, "Do you know where she is?" I sighed, feeling relieved because it seemed they didn't know anything. I answered, "Yeah, I know where she is, and she's not for sale." Spike made an offer. Vince said he paid around $5,000. He's willing to add another $1,000. "How about it?" I replied. "As I said, she's not for sale. She's happy where she is and has moved on. I lied to protect her. Spike smiled genuinely. So Caprice has moved on and found a partner. Good for her. You don't remember me, but I was there the night you got her. I always liked her. She was strong and faced challenges well. He began to walk away. I'll let Vince know he's only half interested. He paused before getting in his car. If you see her, tell her I said hi. I stood firm. As I said, she moved away. Nobody sees her anymore. Spike got in his car and drove off. That was the end of Vince in Pennsylvania, in Rochester, New York. I had been watching the old house for more than a week. I had seen both Mom and Dad. It hurt my heart to see them. They were both so old and frail. Dad used a cane and looked less strong than I remembered. Mom was much thinner than before, almost fragile. She was the one who got out more. She had her routine, shopping mostly at Walmart and getting snacks at Dunkin' Donuts. She didn't do much else and seemed a bit fragile. They needed care, and I felt like I had let them down. I decided to follow her into Walmart. I thought it might bring back memories. I was lying to myself, though. I remembered enough. I was just scared. I watched her park in a handicapped spot and go inside. She walked slowly, so I waited a moment and followed. My stomach felt uneasy. Here I was, hiding from my mom when I should be with her. I felt like a coward. I wasn't the person my parents raised. I felt so alone and frightened. I wished Caden was here. I could tell Caden that they didn't want he. I felt ashamed. I saw her get a cart and head for the aisle with cleaners. I thought I would watch her shop quietly. As I walked down a nearby aisle, I pretended to look at some items. Then I turned a corner and there she was, standing right in front of me. She looked at me. I gasped. How could she recognize me? Her face turned pale and it seemed like she wanted to say something. I gasped again, turned and hurried out of the store. She saw me. What would I do? I rushed to the parking lot, fumbled with my purse, grabbed my keys, and jumped in the car. I drove back to the Motel 6 as fast as I could. Tears streamed down my face on the way back. I felt so scared and confused. In my room, I closed the door and hid in the bathroom. I wanted the pain to stop. I couldn't stop crying. What if she had a health issue? What had I done? I cried, feeling completely alone. I curled up in the shower, overwhelmed. I can't do this. I need help. After finishing some farm work, I looked out the back window when the house phone rang. I ignored it. Angie picked it up. I kept staring at the gray October sky. Angie called, "Caden." I turned around. "I hope it's important. I wouldn't want to wake Emily." Angie handed me the phone. "Caden, it's Caprice." "Caprice!" I jumped from the sofa and rushed to the phone. "What's going on? Is she okay?" Angie just held out the phone. "She doesn't sound too good." I took the phone, my mind racing with questions. Had she gotten involved with Vince? Had something gone wrong? I took a deep breath. "Hello?" I heard her voice. It felt like the sun had come back. It felt like springtime. "Caden? It's me. Caden, I need you." I had a lot of questions. "Are you okay? Did something happen? You're not hurt, right?" She interrupted. "I saw them. I saw my mom and dad. My mom saw me. Caden, I'm scared. I'm really scared." And I could hear her start to cry. "Okay, where are you?" She was sniffing. "I'm at the Motel 6, just outside Rochester, off of I-81, in room 115. I let out a breath of relief. "Okay, you're not hurt. Just stay there. We'll be there in a few hours." She kept crying. "Caden, I'm so scared. I don't know what to do. Promise me you'll come." I wanted to cry too, but not from sadness. I was happy she needed me. I said, "Don't be afraid. Angie and I will be there as fast as we can. We'll call every couple of hours to check in." She continued crying. "I'm scared, Caden." I felt determined and spoke gently. "Caprice, it's me, Caden. Have I ever let you down?" She paused and sniffled. "No." I felt in control. This was what I was meant to do. I assured her, "Good. Angie's figuring out the time and route right now. You'll be okay. I want you to take a warm shower and try to rest. Don't worry. We'll work it out when we get there." She cried again. "I love you, Caden. I knew you'd come for me." That made me feel happy. I replied, "Always, sweetheart. Now get a shower. Put on something comfortable and try to eat something. How about some pizza? Call for pizza. We'll sort it out. It'll all be okay. She whimpered, okay. Now hang up the phone. She asked, can I talk to Angie? I handed the phone to Angie. She wants to talk to you. Keep her calm. Think of things to talk about. Help her relax while I get some things together. Oh yes, you're coming too. Angie took the phone. I could hear Caprice on the other end, starting to calm down. Angie asked, what about Emily? I hesitated. I don't know. Should we take her? This might be too much for her. Angie replied firmly, I think she should go too. I wasn't sure. We'd have to take her out of school. Angie insisted, they'll be good for each other. She'll see her dad being a hero. I shrugged. If you say so. Angie talked to Caprice for a bit longer, then began getting clothes for herself and Emily. About 15 minutes later, she was at Emily's room, gently calling, Emily, honey. I watched from the hallway. Angie whispered, Emily, you, I, and Daddy are going to see Caprice. She needs us. I felt a surge of pride as a father. Emily, now awake, asked, she's not hurt? Angie replied, no, Emily, she's just scared and alone. We're going to help her. Emily jumped off her bed. I'll get dressed. I'll choose something special for her. Warmth spread throughout the house. It felt like a scene from a heartwarming movie. Angie smiled at Emily. That's my girl. It took us about half an hour to pack and organize. I chose the Lexus for our trip, and we were ready to leave. Just then, the phone rang again. It was Caprice. Angie answered, yes? Caprice asked for me. I took the phone. Hello, Caden? Yes? I wanted to say you don't have to come if you don't want to. I sighed. I want to. Caprice asked, are you sure? I'm sure. You're not upset? No, I'm not upset. She hesitated. You don't have to if you don't want to. I assured her. You're my sweetheart. I want to. Well, okay. I asked. Anything else? She said, no, I reinforced. We love you. I love you. We're coming. She sniffed. I just wanted to be sure. I replied, don't worry, I'm on my way. Whatever it is, I can handle it. Then I'll bring you home. She said, okay, I'll wait here. I hung up the phone. Angie asked, what was that about? I shrugged. Caprice was anxious. She needed some comfort. Angie smiled. You did just that. Finally, we were on our way. In Rochester, two older people talked. I swear, Katie, I can't deal with any more of this. Katie looked at her husband, who had changed since their daughter disappeared. She said, she's here, Evan. I saw her. If what you say is true, and I'm not so sure it is, I still have no idea what to do. Katie replied, we could call around, check all hotels and motels, see if anyone has used the name Fisher or fits her description. Then what, Katie? Do we even know what she looks like now? Even if there was someone who looked like her or who used the name Fisher, then what? Do we go confront her? What if she runs away? Then what? What do we do, Evan? I don't know. I just don't know. Oh, Katie, I wish this was over. Katie moved closer to her husband. The sighting had nearly overwhelmed her, but she felt sure it was her Lauren. Her daughter was alive and she was nearby. If she'd come this far, then maybe. Okay, Evan. We'll wait. Let's pray. Evan knelt on the floor. He couldn't remember how many times he'd prayed like this before. He knew it might not help, but... Together, the tired pair knelt on the worn carpet and prayed, Dear Jesus. Somewhere in southern New York, a freshly fueled Lexus stopped at a McDonald's for a break. Sitting across from Caden's empty seat with Emily beside her, Angie took a napkin and wiped her daughter's cheek. How did you get to be such a messy eater, little girl? Mommy, how long before we see Auntie Caprice? Not long, honey. Oh, look, here comes Caden. The two girls watched as Caden walked out of the men's room and came to where they were seated. Did you two go to the bathroom and did you get something to eat? He asked. Angie gave him a playful frown. Sure took you long enough. He smiled. Sometimes a guy has to do what he has to do. Emily held up a bag. Mommy brought you a burger, a coffee, and small fries just like you wanted. He took the bag and coffee and said to Angie, You drive while I eat. The three tired travelers got up and started back toward the car. In a quiet motel room just outside Rochester, a nervous woman sat by the phone. She checked the clock. It had only been an hour since she'd last called Caden. Should she call again? She picked up the phone and dialed his number. It only rang twice before he answered. He spoke gently. "Hi, sweetheart. We had to stop for a quick break, but we're back on the road. We're in New York, so it won't be long now." Caprice replied, her voice shaky. "I hope you get here soon. Please hurry." Caden stayed cheerful. "I don't know who's more eager, you or Emily. Why don't you freshen up? Maybe braid your hair into a ponytail. We bought some ribbon at a store. We can put a bow in it when we get there. Do you have clean clothes?" Caprice nodded. "I have that green blouse you like and some pants." He chuckled, wanting to keep her spirits up. "I love that blouse on you. Take your time, but get ready. We'll go out to eat when we get there." She replied, "I'm not hungry." He glanced at Emily, who was comfortably seated in the back, and joked into the phone. "Don't forget who you're talking to. This is Farmer Caden. Remember your farmer guy? How are you going to grow up strong if you don't eat?" Emily chimed in. "Is Caprice making something?" Angie looked in the mirror. "No, honey, Caden just made a joke," she said, looking at him. Caprice asked, "What's going on?" Caden replied, "Nothing. Emily just heard me joking." Caprice said, "I'm still not hungry." Caden answered, "Do you want me to tease you about it?" "You wouldn't." "What? Get you into a playful mood until you want to eat?" Caprice almost laughed. "Okay, I'll eat." Caden said, "Now go and freshen up. I want to see a pretty ponytail when I get there." He hung up. Caprice put the phone back down. She smiled but still felt nervous. She was a bit happier knowing Caden was coming. As the car sped through the lovely New York countryside, I looked over at Angie. "I've never seen her like this before." "Me neither," Angie replied. "She's always been in control." I checked the speedometer. "Don't drive too fast." "Remember, you don't have your license," I said about Caprice. "Once when we were out in the truck, she tried to run away. When I caught her, she just went limp. It frightened me." Angie glanced in the mirror. "She's been through a lot, Caden. She's had a tough time. Remember that girl who was taken and kept for years? I'm sure we don't know everything Caprice has gone through." I crumpled up the burger and fries wrappers and stuffed them in the bag Emily had handed me. "That girl remembered who she was. Caprice has blocked everything out." "Yes, I remember," Angie replied. "We need to face something. As tough as Caprice seems, she's fragile. I don't want to bring her back just to lose her again." I felt strong. "When we're done, she's coming back home. If I have to, I'll help her parents find a new place. Maybe while we build that, they can stay with your mom." Angie spotted a turnoff. "I'm pulling in. I want you to drive for a while." I smiled. "What are you going to do?" She looked at me seriously. "I'm going to spend the rest of the trip teasing you." I laughed. "I'm sorry about what I said earlier." "Don't worry. We'll take care of her too." Angie turned onto the ramp that led to the rest area. The rest of the drive was quiet. Both Angie and Caden had thoughts they needed to deal with. Angie knew that getting Caprice to come home wouldn't be as easy as Caden thought. She sensed Caprice was trying to step aside so Caden could move on. Caprice wanted to be noble, but Angie felt that wasn't the right choice. She loved Caden deeply, but she cared for Caprice too. Caden was right. Caprice needed to return, but she should come back as part of their family. It wouldn't be simple, but Angie was determined to make it work. Caden realized Angie was right. Caprice's life had been a mask, a dream that would meet a harsh truth when she faced her parents. How would that meeting affect her? No, Caprice wasn't as strong as she appeared. A single misstep could break her. They needed to be careful. He knew what he had to do. Since that Long Ago night, he had kept Caprice safe. Now, with her journey north, she had stepped out of that safe space. But if the truth of her situation didn't hit her all at once, maybe he could help her find her balance again. He felt a chill, as if a shadow had passed over him. Who was really in a dream? They pulled into the motel parking lot. He saw Caprice's car and parked next to it. "Angie, you and Emily go inside first. I spotted a place a bit further back. We'll need more space," he said. "I want to change Caprice's surroundings a little." Angie nodded. She woke Emily and got her out of her seat. "Come on, sweetie, we're here." Emily looked up with excitement. "We're at Caprice's?" Yes, we are. Carrying her, Angie walked to the door they thought was Caprice's and knocked. Inside, Caprice heard a car pull up. As she checked her reflection in the mirror, a knock at the door made her smile. But when she opened it and saw Angie and Emily, the smile faded. "Where's Caden?" Angie pointed to the trunk of the Lexus. "He's in there calling the hotel. He thinks we'll need a bigger room." Caprice didn't listen. She pushed past Angie and Emily and hurried to the back of the Lexus. When she got there, she paused. Caden was on his phone looking serious, and fear washed over her. Caden saw her and smiled back, noticing the relief on her face. She rushed into his arms. "You came." Holding the phone with one hand, he whispered to her, "Of course." He hugged her gently and continued on the phone. "Yes, we want the big room with 2 king-size beds and a sofa. It has a microwave, a fridge, and a big bathtub, right? Great, we'll take it. We'll be there in half an hour." He gave his credit card details and ended the call. Turning to Caprice, he wrapped her in his arms. "I've missed you." She pressed her face against his chest, tears rolling down her cheeks. "I'm scared, Caden. My mom saw me. I'm afraid. I left them. I don't know what to do. I'm scared. They don't love me anymore. I know it." He lifted her chin and said gently, "Look," pointing to Angie holding Emily. "Does Angie hate Emily? Do their parents dislike them? Not at all. Parents aren't like that. We're here now. Let me take care of this. I promise everything will be okay." Caprice wrapped her arms around him tightly, feeling comforted in his embrace. They stood like that in peaceful silence. The 4 of them went inside. "Angie, please pack up our girls' things," he said, searching for Angie's purse. "And where's that ribbon?" He found a green ribbon and motioned Caprice to the small sofa. "Sit here. I need to fix your hair." Caprice, now smiling, skipped over, sat down, and waited as he arranged her ponytail and tied the ribbon in a bow. "All done," he said. "I saw an IHOP on the way here. I could really go for some pancakes and eggs. We'll get some popcorn later and then head to the hotel. I want to watch a movie." While Caprice's mom packed her things, Emily looked at her dad and Aunt Caprice. "Can I pick the movie?" Caden smiled. "Nothing too scary." Emily cheered, "Oh, Daddy." 30 minutes later, Caden checked them out of the motel. He and Caprice got into her car while Angie and Emily followed in the Lexus. He checked them into the hotel and then they were off to IHOP. At IHOP, they were seated quickly. Angie and Caprice both ordered omelets, while Emily chose a smaller portion. Caden opted for a full meal: 3 fried eggs, pancakes, hash browns, and sausage patties. He was very hungry. During the meal, Angie paused and looked at him. "So what's the plan?" As he continued eating, he noticed Caprice looked worried. "Tonight we watch a movie. Tomorrow I want you 3 to go shopping. Take the Lexus and drive north. I hear the best malls are that way. Take the credit card and have some fun." Angie looked a bit confused. "We really don't need anything." "I'm not sure what to say," I continued. "But I wanted to talk about Lauren." The older couple exchanged worried glances. I could sense their concern. It reminded me how important family is. "I've been looking out for her," I said softly. "She means a lot to me. I hope to share some news and learn more about her past." The woman smiled weakly but still looked uncertain. "It's been a long time since we heard anything about her." "I'm sorry if that has caused you pain," I replied sincerely. "I hope to bring some comfort and clarity." The old man nodded slowly, as if thinking about my words. "We would appreciate that." As we talked, I noticed the warmth in their eyes coming back, and I felt a bond growing. They shared stories about Lauren's childhood, helping me understand her better. It felt good to listen and realize that being part of a family, no matter how far apart, can bring strength. After a heartfelt conversation, I thanked them for sharing. "It was nice to meet you," I said honestly. "Thank you for trusting me with your stories." With a nod of understanding, I stepped back outside into the sunlight, feeling the weight of the meeting but also a sense of hope. It was a good start to reconnecting with Lauren's life and the family that cared about her. The woman asked, "Can I get you something, some coffee? A muffin?" "Coffee would be nice," I said, thinking it would help ease the moment. The man looked at me and asked again, "So you know my daughter?" Yes, I know her well, I replied, glancing around their living room filled with pictures of Caprice, or Lauren, as I should say. I decided to wait until the woman brought in the coffee. She didn't take long. She came back with a tray holding a cup of coffee, some cream, and a few sugar cubes on the side. She looked at me. I forgot to ask what you like in your coffee. I took the cup off the tray and added some cream. I'm Caden McLeish. I'm from the lower eastern shore of Maryland. Have you ever been there? The man answered, Ocean City. We've been to Ocean City. Looking a bit pained. Please tell us about our daughter. I'm sorry if I upset you. I can only imagine what you're going through. They both nodded. The man looked shaky and seemed ready to cry. His hands were trembling, and I wondered if he had an illness. His hair was gray and thin. Fisher, Lauren, or Caprice, as we first knew her, is not far from here. She's with my ex-wife and my daughter. I looked at the older woman and tried to smile. You saw her the other day. She told us, Mr. and Mrs. Fisher, your daughter has been through a lot. She has had a tough time, I said, looking back at the older woman. When she saw you, she got scared. She feels guilty and worried. That's partly why I'm here. Before I go to get her, I would like to share her story with you. Would you please let me do that? The older man was shaking. Who is she to you? I held my hands together in front of me. She's someone I met this past Palm Sunday. I helped her. Since then, I've come to care for her. I guess you could say I've fallen for her. That's why I'm here. She needs help. I care about her. Won't you please let me tell you what I know? The older woman was quietly crying. Yes, please. And the older man looked pale. I began my story. I had gone to Pennsylvania for a card game. Your daughter was working there. She was in a hard place and needed help. I stepped in and they agreed. I brought her home and I then shared what I knew about her, how she had been moved from one person to another, how she endured difficulties, and how she had suffered. I talked about how she connected with my ex-wife and daughter, how she had overcome her hardships and became a valued part of my hometown. I told them how she earned respect and love, attended our church, and even joined the choir. I explained what a good person she was and how much I cared for her. I also described the strong front she showed at first and how she slowly opened up. I was careful to highlight how sensitive my ex-wife and I thought she was, and how worried we were that seeing you again might be too much for her. It took me almost 2 hours to say everything. By the time I finished, I was feeling quite emotional. I told them, so you see, we're a bit worried. She has been through so much, and she is quite fragile right now. She fears that you might not love her. She feels guilty. We all need to tread lightly. We care for her deeply. I care for her. I know you both care for her too. I'm just afraid we might lose her. She is hanging by a thread. The older man remained silent. I was worried about his health. The older woman was still crying, but she seemed to hold it together better. She asked me, what do you think we should do? What do you want us to do? I took a sip of my coffee and looked around the living room. First, I suggest making things the way they were before she left. This place feels intense, and I think it might overwhelm her. Try to recreate how it looked 12 years ago. Avoid dressing up or anything fancy. Just keep it casual and try to relax. I observed them. I think the older man was starting to understand. He reminded me of Caprice, or Lauren as we now know her. He seemed like someone who needed to stay busy. I suggested, I'd like to bring her over tonight. Prepare one of her favorite meals, but don't go to any extremes, maybe her second favorite. Do you have any spare bedrooms? Angie, that's my ex-wife, and Emily, my daughter, should stay here tonight as well. They exchanged glances. The older man said, we have one spare bedroom. Okay, Angie and Emily can sleep in there. I'll stay on the sofa, I mentioned, but don't be surprised if Lauren wants me close. It wouldn't be strange. I mean, I'd only be there if she asked, just to help her feel secure. I wouldn't take advantage of your kindness, I added gently. Who knows? She might want her mother with her. I continued sharing my thoughts and ideas. I said, I know this has been tough for you. It has been tough for her too, but it's almost over. The older man continued to weep. The older woman also had tears. I started to tear up too. We ended up in the middle of the living room hugging each other. I said, I already care about you both, but I don't even know your names. Through her tears, the older woman said, This is Evan, and I'm Katie. I replied, Katie. That's a lovely name. It took us some time, but we finally got it together. I took their home phone number and mentioned I would call before we left. They asked where we were staying, and I told them the Hampton Inn, but requested they not call or visit. I wanted to get this right. Just before I left, the older man asked, "Would you like to see her room?" I was surprised and said, "Sure." The couple led me to her room, the place where she grew up. I was taken aback. I felt swept away, caught in a tide of memories. Baby dolls, Barbies, stuffed animals, wall posters, shelves filled with books, everything you would expect in a girl's room. They even had her high school yearbooks. I saw many pictures that showed her growing from a toddler to a young woman. One picture captured her with a bicycle, with a Christmas tree nearby. She looked about 6 years old. It was her gift that year, a red bike. It was beautiful. She had been a brownie, a Girl Scout, and in one photo, she wore a tutu, arms stretched out. There was another picture from high school where she had been homecoming queen and a majorette. It was hard to believe how beautiful she was. I was overwhelmed and sat down on her bed. That's when I noticed something. She had a teddy bear. Every child has a teddy bear. I picked it up. It was worn and old. Its fur was mostly gone, and one of its eyes was partly missing. This was her most precious treasure, the thing she loved dearly when she was a child, and nothing could compare to it. I remembered being a boy. I had a teddy bear, too. I held that piece of cloth close. I recalled how my grandmother once said I needed to be punished. She made me give her the one thing I valued more than anything. I brought her my teddy, and she placed it in the fire. I had to watch as the flames took it away. I never forgave her for that. Looking at the two older people now, I knew they would never hurt Lauren. I felt a deep sense of nostalgia and sadness. It seemed silly to cry over a teddy bear. I couldn't take it. We left her room. I felt sorry for these people. I started to feel pity for myself, too. She meant everything to them. Without her, their lives had felt empty for 12 years. Finally, I kissed Katie's cheek and shook Evan's hand. As I left, I whispered, "Just a little longer." They both started to tear up again. I hugged them both once more and hurried to Lauren's car, climbed in, and drove back to the Hampton Inn. I kept thinking, that was tough, but the hardest part was still ahead. When I got back to the inn, I saw that the girls hadn't returned yet. I sat down in the restaurant and ordered a sandwich and iced tea. I couldn't sort through the thoughts racing in my mind. First, I struggled to understand who I was in Rochester to protect. I had met a woman named Caprice. She had been a tough survivor. Over time, she changed into someone kind and caring, a person others in my hometown respected and cared for. Today, at her parents' house, I caught glimpses of another person, a young girl named Lauren, someone who had lived a mostly happy life but had made a terrible mistake. I somehow knew the woman we would take to the Fishers tonight would change again. That brought me to my second concern. Would Caprice and the once innocent Lauren see me in the same way? I broke out in a cold sweat. Would my attempt to help this woman, a woman I loved deeply, make her see me as part of something she'd rather forget? By helping her, would I risk losing her? That thought scared me. I remembered my high school English teachers. There was my senior year teacher, Mrs. Wickwire. She loved Dickens. We read Great Expectations, Oliver Twist, and A Tale of Two Cities. I really got into the story of Charles Darnay and Sidney Carton. I once thought Carton was foolish. All he had to do was let the French take care of Darnay, and he would have won the girl and everything else. But that foolish man switched places with Darnay. Darnay walked free, and Carton paid the price. Wasn't I doing the same thing? If I had just let Caprice's past stay in the past, I would have been free. I would have had the girl of my dreams, my ex-wife, and my daughter. But no, I had to be the noble fool. Tonight I would walk the steps, Caprice would confront her past, and Lauren would come out anew, only to remember her 12 years of struggle. I could only blame myself. It felt like everything I had done was falling apart around me. The thought made me want to break something, but there was nothing I could do. Not now. Not anymore. I had to see this through to the end. All the tough parts of my upbringing came rushing back, haunting me. I imagined my late father and the mother I never knew, along with my critical great-grandmother, somewhere sharing a laugh at my expense. Who was I to think I deserved real happiness? I recalled the old Meatloaf song, 2 out of 3 ain't bad. But it wasn't merely not bad. I wanted the whole experience, yet deep down, I knew it wasn't meant for me. Life had its way of giving and taking, and at that moment I felt a wave of frustration. Looking through the restaurant window, I saw the girls arriving. I finished my tea, wishing for a way to relax. If only I had something to help me through it, but I was stuck in my sober state. I met the girls on the sidewalk. Emily ran up to me excitedly. "Guess what I got?" "I don't know. What did you get?" "I got a whole bunch of clothes." I smiled. "Now wait, did you get a bunch? A big bunch or a whole big bunch?" She laughed. "I guess a whole big bunch." It felt good to share a moment of joy. I turned to Lauren, making sure to call her by name. "How did you do?" She smiled thoughtfully. "I bought a dress, a purse, and shoes for tonight." Then I looked at Angie. "And you?" She shrugged. "I got a headache, a whole big headache." "Oops, sorry," I said lightly. We went up to our room, the girls ahead while I carried a dozen bags. Once inside, I turned to them, focusing on Lauren. "I met your mom and dad. They're really nice people, but they're worried. They've missed you a lot. Right now, they're just focused on how you feel." I could see understanding in her eyes. "We're going to eat and stay overnight at their house," I added. Her expression turned urgent. "Then what?" "I don't know. We'll decide tomorrow." With wide eyes, she asked, "You won't leave me?" I gave her my most sincere look. "Never, not a chance." "You promise?" "I promise. I will never leave you," I assured her, hoping this eased her concerns. Angie took Lauren's hand. "We need you. He needs you." "I need you," she said, pointing to Emily. "She needs you." Emily had been busy opening her packages. "Come here, Dad. Let me show you what I got." I thought in just a moment, I went from daddy to dad. We all got ready for our visit to the Fishers. Angie wore a simple dark blue dress. Emily looked so cute in her cozy jumper, while I chose khakis and a blue button-up shirt. Lauren, still on my mind as I tried to remember her name, wore a beige blouse and dark brown pants, matched with her loafers and clutch. She added a bit of makeup, and I couldn't help but notice her bright green eyes. Once we were all ready, we climbed into the Lexus and started the short drive, which somehow felt longer. When we arrived, I parked on the street and helped the girls out. Angie and Emily walked excitedly to the front door, while Lauren seemed a bit nervous. I took her hand gently. "Come on, you can do this." She looked anxious, and I was afraid she might pull back. We walked up the sidewalk, with Angie and Emily leading and Lauren a step behind me, holding onto my arm. Just then, someone opened the door. It was her mom, dressed casually but warmly. When Lauren saw her, it felt like time slowed down. She spoke softly. "Oh, Mom." Her mother stepped forward, emotions clear on her face. "Tater Tot," she said, using a childhood nickname. In that moment, Lauren took off running toward her mother, shouting, "Mom, Mommy!" They hugged right there on the porch. I exchanged a look with Angie, and we both felt amazed by the touching reunion happening in front of us. Soon, Lauren's dad appeared. If the first reunion was heartwarming, this was even more powerful. I watched them embrace, and it felt like they were all reconnecting in a very deep way. As they reunited, we stood outside for a moment, unsure of when to join them. It wasn't until Lauren motioned for us to come in, still holding my arm and Angie's hand, that we stepped inside. Inside, while Lauren stayed close to me, she introduced us. "Mom, Dad, this is Angie and Caden. They're my family." She smiled at Emily, who looked a bit dazed from all the emotions. Then she lightly touched Angie's cheek, saying, "This is Angie. She's my sister." I noticed she didn't say, "like my sister," or "sort of my sister." She said, "my sister," as if she really meant it. Well, I guess she did. She then leaned down and smiled at Emily, saying, "And this is Emily, and she's my little girl." I was feeling a mix of emotions. My heart was racing. Was I more like Charles Darnay or Sidney Carton? At that moment, Lauren let go of Angie's hand, stepped towards me, took both my hands in hers, and said, "And this is Caden McLeish. He's a wonderful farmer who saved me and made me fall in love with him." She smiled at her parents. "He's going to marry me, and then we'll have a big family." I couldn't help but feel overwhelmed. The last few days had been so intense. I'd just been crying with the Fishers, and now this? I felt like a hero in a book. I had the girl. I was the luckiest man alive. I couldn't hold back my tears. I looked at Angie. She was smiling and said, "Lauren and I talked earlier while we were shopping. We figured it out. I already have Emily, and I know I have you. No matter what happens, I have you. But Lauren loves you too. So we decided you should marry her." She chuckled. "That way we keep her close to us." "Yes, we decided. You're kind and someone we want. All three of us." She glanced down at Emily. "So you'll just have to build a bigger house." I couldn't find the words to respond. I just stood there, feeling overwhelmed. Lauren looked at her parents. She had made it through. She told them, "We can't take care of you if you stay here. You'll need to move. We'll build you a house near ours. Mom, Dad, you'll love it there, but you'll have to help out. We'll need you for babysitting because I plan on having lots of kids." She winked at me. "You okay with that?" Through my tears, I managed to say, "Anything you say." Emily interrupted, "I'm bored. We should have brought Candyland." That's when Katie, Lauren's mom, said softly, "We have that game. I'll get it." The following days were busy. We stayed a few days with the Fishers. Angie, Emily, and I left first, and Lauren and her parents followed a week later. We built that extra house. We fixed up Angie's mom's house, too. The Fishers moved in with us while we built something for them. At our place, Angie and Emily took the room across the hall from our big bedroom. Sometimes I was expected to step away so Angie and Lauren could have their time together. Every now and then, I also spent time with Angie because she wanted some company, and I was happy to do whatever would make them happy. Lauren and I did get married. Her dad performed the ceremony with help from Pastor Cook. We didn't know it at the time, but Lauren was expecting. Since then, we've welcomed 3 kids, 2 girls, and a boy. Lauren wants more kids, and that's fine with me. The more, the merrier. It wasn't all smooth sailing. We did get counseling. I even asked Angie if she wanted help, but she said she'd rather have a car. Oh, by the way, Dell married Sally, and they have a couple of boys now. I helped Dell buy a farm near Snow Hill, just across from Assateague Island. Dell brought in good soil and started a blueberry venture. The sandy soil where we lived wasn't right for it. The poultry industry is big around here, mainly chickens, but Dell got into ducks. The local restaurants want his eggs and ducks. I knew he was onto something. Sally's in college, hoping to become a teacher. Lauren, Evan, and I go crabbing at Dell's every now and then. Evan had never tried Maryland steamed crabs before. He says he loves them. I trust him. He eats plenty of them. Angie's mom sold her house and moved in with us. She sleeps upstairs. My siblings, even though I don't always feel worthy, still seem to care about me. Matt Devereaux still works at the library and still lives by himself. Bernard Keith continues to meet his friends at the Wagon Wheel, where they celebrate every Friday night. He has had some problems at times. Barry found a nice girl from Georgetown and has settled down with her. So I guess everything turned out okay. I just hope we get enough rain this year. I think I might mention it to the Lord on Sunday. You never know. Sometimes I feel like he listens. There has to be a conclusion. Well, they all lived happily ever after, just like in the movies. The end.